Sup everyone, welcome back to another video, and as promised, today we have the one, the only Lay7. And if you guys don't know who Lay7 is, he's been a long-standing member of the community here in my channel, and he's pretty well known for having me pull for his infamous C6 Toma, which yes, I'll probably show a short clip of it on screen right now as to how that went.
I'm not, hey Mahoyo, I'm not about to sit here and let you destroy me psychologically. Destroy me psychologically. It ain't happening. Hey, we out this bitch. Later, bit.
Lay7 here is the guy I was referring to in my previous video, where he made the transition from a C6R5 EULA main into now a Nilou main. Now, why is that? Truth be told, I haven't really asked him yet. I'm saving the best for you guys. And also, Lay here has been working on some projects himself on YouTube, making predominantly showcase music videos. Now, if you guys are wondering what is that, you've never heard about it because you've heard about showcases, you've heard about music videos, but I bet you've never seen Genshin music video showcase videos. Weird to say, but I'll pass it now to Lay7 for his introduction. So Lay7, here you have it.
That too kind of an intro, bro. I appreciate it. Hey guys, it's Lay7, and yeah, I'm the guy who always donates to get Walrus attention because I'm an attention whore. And I'm also the guy who has spent like 15K on this game. Disgusting. Yeah, I've been playing Genshin since day one, actually. I saw Gene and I got on the game and started swiping my credit card like a degenerate. I've been playing Genshin since day one, and I've mained many different characters, but one character in particular, unfortunately, on the screen right now is EULA. I've been a dedicated EULA main for over 2 years now until I switched to Nilou, and a big reason for that is, man, even with the C6R5 EULA, physical is just not fun anymore. Especially with the addition of Dendro. Dendro just kind of killed my passion for physical damage. There's just so many reactions in this game. Hell, I'm gonna be honest with you. Playing full EM crystallized albedo is more fun than playing my EULA right now. It's truly horrible. And I know many of you might think, well, you have a C6R5, you can beat anything. You're correct, I can beat anything, but just because I can beat anything doesn't mean it's fun. And a big reason as to why it's not fun is also not just because of so many reactions being added to the game and just being in the game in general, but also even when I tried to speed run, because I have a few C6 characters, even when I tried to speed run, often different combinations that don't include EULA are faster than using EULA. And it just honestly feels like I wasted so much on her. So many people know the infamous EULA riding team for its ability to speed run, especially at well levels. Well, a lot of the time, if I just replaced EULA with someone else on that Raiden team, whether it's a pure hyper carry Raiden or Raiden with another big burst nuke such as Hu Tao, it's just faster. Because at the end of the day, even though EULA has the highest damage potential in the game, especially with C6, that C6 doesn't mean anything because you still have the cast time of her burst, which is a lot. And you have to at least stack it a couple times. Like most of the time when you're speedrunning, you can't just use your burst and then switch off. You still have to do like 1, 2, sometimes 3 attacks before you switch off. And that just takes time. So even in speedrunning, she's just not the best. She's not the best at all. So when you're not the best for speedrunning and you don't feel the greatest just playing normally, I've just lost a lot of passion for this character.
It's very difficult to listen to somebody slowly losing their passion for their main. I know a lot of the times we meme on like Genshin mains, right? Like Hu Tao mains, EULA mains, of course, right? Nowadays, the new target is the Dia mains. I know we meme a lot about it, but like listening to you describe that feeling, really, it's quite a painful thing to listen to because and it's not even monetary, right? Let's just not even involve monetary, because if we think about the amount of money that's spent, that hurts even more. But just the fact that you when you first decided to go for a C6R5 Eula, you anticipated that maybe just like the other rosters of characters, that she will get the treatment that she deserves as like a 5-star premium character, which till this day she has yet to have that kind of treatment done for her, right? And I think something you mentioned, which is very important to this discussion, is the fact that physical DPS has really just not gone anywhere. In fact, in comparison, you could even say they went backwards. If I think that wouldn't be too far of a stretch to say. Talking about that transition from Eula to a Nilou main, I guess with that introduction, everyone, we can all kind of get a sense of why Lay7 here decided to pivot away from Eula. So now that we've talked about Eula, can we get some insight from you as to what about Nilou made you decide to pick her, right? As a gigawhale, I'm sure EroticWalruss will also like a bit more insight into somebody who spends this amount of money on their games to better understand why Nilou, right? Why no one else but Nilou?
Yeah, my Nilou, by the way, is C6R5. I did just get her weapon. I was gonna go higher, and I still did kind of want to go higher this banner, but I'm actually gonna hold off. If I'm gonna get constellations, it'll be on her next rerun, because I just truly haven't made up my mind yet. So I'm gonna hold off on the constellations for now. And the reason why I'm gonna keep her C0 is because I just feel that kind of power from her at C0. And when I play her, I'm only getting like 10-second longer chamber runs than my C6R5 Eula. It just goes to show you how strong and fun Nilou is. Like I was telling you, Walrus, before we started this, I didn't pull Nahida on purpose. There are so many people who believe that Nilou is just only okay without Nahida. That's just not true. Nilou is absolutely amazing even without Nahida, and she's borderline broken with Nahida. I straight up cleared this abyss, both chambers, with a C0R1 Nilou team on both sides, and I made sure the other side was not a whale team, just to prove to my friends and community that I talk with every day that Nilou is just a very strong character. Even when she's not in her niche, she's just so strong, and she does her job so well. And that's the biggest key, right? She does her job.
Right.
Eula just does not do her job. And there is just so many abysses for the last 2 years where I have felt if I did not have a C6 Eula, if I had a C0 Eula like 90% of players have, I just wouldn't have been able to clear that abyss. It just wouldn't have been possible because I don't have the mechanical skills sometimes to do that stuff. Like only the best of the best Eula players with great mechanical skills and enemy awareness and knowing their attack patterns can pull off some of these abysses that we've had in the past. I'm not like that. I'm just maybe barely above an average player in terms of skill. So there's just so many abysses that I just personally, and so many other players, because fun fact, most Genshin players suck at the game. That's why Zhongli's so used. We just wouldn't have been able to do it if we did not have such a highly invested Eula. And when my C6R5 Eula is not crushing my other teams that are not even whaled out, it just feels bad, man. Because in my opinion, when you have a C6R5, you should feel dominant. You should feel like a king every single time you use them. And my Eula, she just feels like a very strong unit. She doesn't feel like I'm just crushing things every single time. It just feels like she's just very strong. But my Raiden's who's C6, anytime I use my Raiden, I actually feel like a god. It just doesn't feel the same with Eula. And when some of my C0 units are somewhat keeping up with my Eula, like my Nilou, it just feels bad, man.
Okay, so I see that from your perspective, Nilou is both fun and powerful and cheap. right? So, and on top of that, are you planning eventually to invest a lot into Nilou, or do you think that part of the charm of Nilou is how accessible she is at these lower constellations, right? You said a 10-second discrepancy between your Eula and Nilou clear, and I think that's something we can magnify here and talk a little more about that. Do you feel like that the difference between these two characters, even from a C0 and C6 perspective, is way too small, and that's why you felt like you're playing a subpar character in Eula, and it was time to finally let go because you were holding on to her mainly because of her charm in other areas, right? So maybe it's finally clicked that it's not as fun anymore to whack around enemies and stack up your bursts just to see a big fat number on screen, when reactions really is the name of the game when it comes to Genshin Impact, right? Like, this game's combat charm is built around its reaction systems, and Dendro really took that to the forefront, and HoYoverse developed Dendro in a way like they've never designed other reactions. It's like their youngest child. Yeah, it's like it's like the youngest child of the family kind of situation, right? They put so much love and attention towards Dendro stuff that honestly, I don't even know if they know physical DPS even still exists in the game. I mean, they must know because they released Mika. But that's besides the point, right? So now going forward, as you were talking about Nilou, I want to hear a little bit from your perspective when it comes to other players' experience with Nilou. And you mentioned that you had to prove to your friends who strongly believe Nilou single target or Nilou will struggle in this current abyss, right? And you said you proved to them with your Nilou that it's really not the character, but more so the players if you're not able to clear content or speed abyss. I'm assuming 36 star with a C0 Nilou. And before you answer, I just want to add on that personally, from my perspective, is that all characters have their strengths and weaknesses. While Nilou isn't necessarily the best single target, she is not the worst single target either, right? She can get the job done. It's just that I'm sure we can all agree there are better single target characters that are designed for less enemies in the chamber as opposed to Nilou. But for people who are thinking about picking up a Nilou, can you share a little bit about these, I guess, misinformations floating around regarding her weaknesses?
Well, yeah, like, absolutely, she's weaker in single target. That's not a debate. Absolutely. And when it comes to this current abyss, the three hardest challenges, and I guess from weakest to, the weakest to the strongest challenge, the three is the Magu Kenki, the Cryo Abyss Herald, and the Weenet, right? In order of difficulty. The Magu Kenki, he's single target, that's her weakness, but the Magu Kenki is also just never that hard to beat. So I would expect most Nilou players to be able to get through the Magu Kenki without a problem. Now, the Cryo Abyss Herald Shield, I can see many Nilou players struggling with that, because I will admit it took me like 2 retries to really like figure it out how I needed to kill the first group of enemies to like set up good enough to not take too long on the Cryo Abyss Herald. And with my team of Nilou, Kokomi, Kole, and Traveler, I was able to beat that chamber with 8:15 left. So it took 1:45, which is 15 seconds longer than what they recommend. But that is one of Nilou's absolute worst matchups, and it only took mine, C0R1, 15 seconds more. So if a lot of players, which I expect a lot of players who have Nilou also have Nahida, it's doable. It's not something people should be disheartened about, right? Especially if you have your second team set up to where they can deal with the Hydro Abyss Heralds well, which I did. I made sure my Ganyu Freeze team, which handled the Hydro Abyss Heralds very well. And then the third, by far the hardest, is the Weenet. Now, again, like I said, most Genshin players are not good at the game, but guess what? That's okay. It's okay to be bad at a video game. If you don't play the strongest versions of Nilou teams, which obviously have Nahida, which I don't have on purpose, you have to play the Weenet perfect. You literally cannot mess up anything. You have to play it perfect. You have to know where he spawns. You just have to. Or it won't be possible to clear in time.
I have a question because you mentioned earlier that when it comes to Eula, if you wanted to consistently clear all Abyss at C0, maybe free to play or C0R1, you had to play her damn near flawlessly, right? Since we're on this topic, can you talk a little bit about the differences between playing Eula close to perfect and playing Nilou close to perfect? What are the differences and why Nilou feels like, to you, at least I'm assuming here, it sounds like Nilou is more fun for you to challenge yourself to play her perfectly versus Eula.
There's a huge difference because when it comes to playing Nilou perfect, you just got to make sure your abilities are in the right spot at the right time, right? That's all you have to do. The blooms will do themselves, right? As long as you make sure your ults and your skills are hitting at the right time and the right place, that's how you play Nilou perfect, right? Mm-hmm. Because Nilou teams don't have a true rotation. There's no such thing as a dedicated rotation to a Nilou team. You kind of just switch to the character that you need to switch to at that current moment. So, in my opinion, that is infinitely easier to play a Nilou team perfect than a Eula team perfect. Because at the end of the day, shocker, guys, I have a C6R5 Eula with 78 crit rate. Now, because you got to understand, playing a Eula team perfect, you can play it to a T. Perfect rotation, perfect setup, max stacks before the ult goes off. If that ult does not crit, you have to retry.
Yeah, and I mentioned that in the past, like in Eula videos, is the way she was designed puts so much stress. Like all your eggs are in one basket. It's everything is in there, and if that thing fails you, it feels kind of like something that's out of your control. I guess that's a good way to sum it up, is it's out of your control. When things are out of your control and you've spent like how much money on this character and you leave it all to chance in the final hit, everything you've spent accumulates to that single moment, and it could feel like you're getting blue balled if it doesn't crit, right? Like you've done everything perfectly. You could have done the most perfect run you could have humanly pulled off, and that last number doesn't crit, you just feel like an absolute dumbass because I know what you feel. It's a terrible feeling. It's gut-wrenching.
I wasn't done, bro. It's more than just the crit. Eula has had gameplay problems since day one. Now, I think most of your audience has been playing since Eula came out, but for those who haven't, when Eula first came out, there was so many memes because of the Spiral Abyss at the current time, there was a lot of Wappa flowers. Right. And so many Wappa flowers would just duck underground when Eula's burst goes off, and it would completely miss. That is another huge gameplay problem for Eula, and it even happens now in this Abyss specifically. In Chamber 1, they have that, I don't know their name, so forgive me, but you know the Eremites that summon the pet, they teleport. I don't know if you can tell when they're about to teleport, but it seems random to me. They can literally just teleport out your Eula's burst, and you can't control that.
It's the same thing with Rift Hounds. Rift Hounds can just disappear and shift into a different dimension, and your whole burst will miss. That's also like, it's just like, yeah, once you start talking about this, it really highlights. Eula is very much in a similar position, in my opinion, to Zhao, except Zhao is much more viable of a solo carry, and at the very least now he has Faruzan, which actually provides things in her kit that he lacks, so they kind of complete each other. And I think Eula a lot of times was overshadowed by characters that are also suffering in similar ways, which is like my point. Easiest one was Zhao. But back to Nilou now, because it seems like it's not really about a challenge that is bothering you, right? Like small hurdles are always welcomed, even medium-sized, large hurdles, bring it on. As long as the journey to clearing those hurdles can be an enjoyable process, right? And it sounds like to me that Eula, no matter what you're doing, it just feels like the hurdle, like it has spikes on them or something like that. Or like when you're trying to jump over the hurdle, you have to get scratched one way or another. It's not a pleasant hurdle to jump over, if I'm making any sense, right? Whereas Nilou, sure, things can be complicated, but the process to clearing the content through Nilou feels more enjoyable as opposed to doing it with Eula, even a C6R5 Eula.
Amen. Look, man, day one of the new Abyss, when it came out, I tried to do my and my usual new abyss. Let me try to get a Eula speed run in real quick. I didn't even finish it. This is the first abyss since I've had my Eula C6R5 that I did not do my Eula speed run that I do every time, because I was doing the last chamber with the Ruin Guard and the 2 cryo lava trills, and before my burst popped, one of them just jumped into the sky out of range of my burst.
Right, I keep forgetting. Even monsters like the lava trolls have these immune moments, right? It's just, well, they're not immune, it's just they're just out of your hitbox. I mean, Magu Genki can also suddenly dash away. It's like he has these things that where he just suddenly dash away from you. So yeah, like you said, when it comes to Eula players, you guys are really forced to be on your toes at all times, and like sometimes the environment doesn't even permit you guys to play the way you want to, and you just kind of have to let your burst go prematurely or whatever to kind of capitalize on the momentary stuff, right? I mean, when it comes to Eula, that might actually be a type of playstyle you have to enjoy playing, like this dynamic reaction to the enemies as opposed to controlling the pace of the battle. Right? That may kind of throw some people off.
Yeah, and then I've played on my friend's account a lot. Her name is Bree, and she has a C0 Eula, and I'm actually jealous because even though my Eula is obviously infinitely stronger, she has better artifacts than me, so she has a better crit ratio, and it makes me sad, but I've used her Eula a decent amount, and her Eula C0. And man, when one thing goes wrong, it completely ruins Eula's run. But when a character like Nilou, if one thing goes wrong, like let's say one enemy ungrouped, right. It's like, well, dang, that's unfortunate. One enemy ungrouped, so they're not going to die as quick. Let me kill the other enemies grouped real quick and then just go solo that enemy. That doesn't kill a Nilou run. That's okay. Let's say one enemy didn't get frozen in your Ayaka burst. That's okay. Ayaka can still just charge attack that enemy down that didn't get frozen. It's not the end of the world. But if Eula's burst doesn't hit the enemies it needs to hit, it completely ruins the run.
Right. Can you talk a little bit about the people who are saying, well, my Eula is, I just use auto attacks to finish off the rest of the fight, right? Like they say their auto attacks on Eula are doing 40-50k damage per auto, and they say they'll just auto the last enemy to death with that. Can you talk a little bit about the people who are claiming that?
Those are my fallen brothers and sisters who once like me fighting for our last breath. I can't even make fun of them, man, because I used to be like them. Like, oh, I know exactly what they're fighting for, bro. Like, when you love a character so much, it's just painful to not hear them spoken in the light. It's so hurtful to hear them just brought down all the time. But the last few months, I've just come to reality that until they make a physical overhaul, whether they actually bring true physical supports, because Mika doesn't exist, and I don't care what anyone says. I have a level 90 C6 Mika, so I know what the hell I'm talking about. Mika doesn't exist. And when the best Eula player in the world on YouTube, Silas, says that Mika's trash, he just doesn't exist. So if they're gonna actually bring real physical supports, or if they're gonna redo Superconduct, like overhaul Superconduct, until something happens, Eula's just gonna be where she is, unfortunately.
Let's kind of end this on a high note, right? For players who are getting in, at the very least, they have these comparables, right? Although Eula and Nilou are not direct comparable characters, you have all these options. Newer players are just kind of coming into this huge department store. They get to choose everything. Things are like on sale, almost like flash sales. They're just running around. They have all these beautiful, beautiful characters that they can choose to play. We didn't have such luxury back in the day. I know we're making it sound like we had it tougher, but really we're talking about a video game. However, from your perspective, do you think that this kind of progression for the game is good, right? Because would you rather have Nilou come out and be kind of like Eula, or would you rather the game continue to develop and become better? And I mean, sure, maybe they'll go back and fix Eula, maybe they won't, but would you like to see in the future the game continue going towards a positive direction with characters that are more free-to-play friendly, lower tier investments, as opposed to whale baiting for C6 characters? Or do you think the old dynamic was good, where once in a blue moon they'll release a really good low concentration character like Hu Tao, Ganyu, Tartaglia, and then sometimes they'll have whale bait characters like Eula, but they'll never really kind of deviate from that formula. And then they have the Archons, of course. What are your thoughts on how Genshin has developed?
To be honest with you, I have to ask, other than Eula, who else, because, you know, jog my memory, who else is a whale bait 5-star that they've released?
In my opinion, I think Ito was a whale bait, Zhao was a whale bait, and then apart from that, Ganyu kind of was a whale bait, but Ganyu was so damn strong as C0, and her C1 before Raiden came out was, I believe, one of the biggest DPS increase constellations, so I wouldn't say Ganyu is a whale bait. She just has a really good C6. Apart from Zhao, Ito, I would say most mono team carries are like hyper carries, right, are whale bait. Shinhe was like a huge whale bait. I honestly think it's just the hyper carries that they were using to whale bait people, and Eula is a hyper carry.
I think putting Eula in a tier of her own as the only 5-star DPS whale bait, and been putting all the other characters you said in a tier below, maybe like a vertical investment bait, right? Like incentivizing on to get Albedo and to get Zhongli for your Ito, incentivizing to get Farazan for your Shao and for your Wanderer. I think that's more, because to be honest with you, those characters you just named, I've played them all. I've gotten the opportunity to play them all because of my friends who let me on their account, and I'm sorry, but none of them feel like Eula. Even at C0, they just don't feel like Eula. Like, they actually feel like they're functional. Eula just does not feel functional.
There's going to be a lot of people in the comment section who will fight that point to the death, right? They'll claim since day one, they've cleared 36-star Abyss with a Eula, with a free-to-play weapon. And like,
that's fine, because they're probably telling the truth. You know, not going to knock their accomplishment in their achievements. More power to you if you can do that with Eula. But these people also, like me, and they're lying to you, and you don't see the behind the scenes. You don't see how many times they have to retry the chamber.
Right. It's just like, my point is, to different people, there's going to be different levels of difficulty to playing certain characters, right? For those people, they'd be like, oh yeah, I one-tried all Abyss is 36-star with Eula. It's effortless to me with a free-to-play weapon. I don't see any problems with it. But they fail to see things from other people's perspective, right? Maybe they're just really good at Eula. Maybe they've, like, after playing her for 2 years, they've gotten really accustomed to all the minute details of how to play the character, and like you were mentioning before, knowing all the enemies, attack patterns, and all that stuff, and that to them becomes second nature, right? It's kind of like the curse of knowledge. You do not know what it felt like before you know what you know, if that makes sense. So these people will claim that Eula is fine. That's the weirdest thing, right? They'll say C0 Eula is fine. They will even go as far as say C0 Eula is better than Zhao, better than Ito, and they'll claim that. They'll make that claim, and they'll tell other people that's how it is. When in reality, for different people, these things will change. And that's what we have to be careful. That's why I have you here as a C6R5 Eula. You've played her at C0, you played her at C6R5, you played her for 2 years. What are your thoughts? And I'm sure people have heard you loud and clear. C0 Eula does feel like she struggles, especially for the average player, I would imagine. If you're just a typical gamer, you want to play Eula, C0 free-to-play weapon Eula just does not feel adequate in modern day Genshin. Is that a good enough summary?
Yeah, so you just, I mean, we've hit it right on the nail. What's the saying? Hit the nail right on the head? Is that how people say it?
I think so.
I'm sorry, but I still love Eula. But my brothers and my sisters of the Eula Nation, please stop. Surrender your weapons. Because the more you fight, the more Mihoyo is not going to change her. Please, you know deep down that you guys want a buff. Please, just lay down your weapons. It's not worth fighting anymore, soldiers. It's just not worth it.
Well, what a powerful message to end this interview. Thank you so much, Lay7, for this opportunity to get some insight and to see the transition and the decisions that you had to make going from Eula main to a Nilou main. I actually do look forward to your progress in Nilou. And can you give us a little bit of a timeline as to when you want to progress your Nilou, how you want to do it, and just conclude with Nilou?
Right now, I'm just trying to get the flop artifact set, the one that's like meant for Bloom and Hyper Bloom and Virgin. I have a good HP, 2 HP and 2 EM on her right now, but I really want the 4-piece flop. And if people don't know what flop means, it's the Flower of Paradise set. And other than that, like I said at the beginning, I'm gonna wait for her next rerun to determine if I want constellations or not, because I just need a little bit more testing with C0, because genuinely she's the most fun C0 I've ever played in my entire span of Genshin, and I'm a day 1 player. So I just need more testing before I decide to whale out on her, because she might be one of my most fun characters ever, and I can just leave her at C0. That's really all I have left to say. I just released my new Nilou video yesterday, so if you want to go check it out, that's up to you. I'm not going to force anybody. But yeah, I ain't got really nothing else to say, Walrus. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for joining us. And yeah, for people who want to go check out Lei's video, it'll be pinned in the comment section as well as in the description. So until next time, I urge you all to stay safe and peace. Good luck with your summons.